Welcome, fans of fantasy and sci fi, as well as my subscribers who came here for the wrestling. There's a lot of crossover there, so just enjoy the content. Welcome to my review of The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Episode 4. Okay, so I plan to release a review of Episode 3, as well as the first two episodes, but in a shorter version and a more compact version. But this episode came out, so that's gonna have to be delayed. But basically, I think episode 3 is where the show becomes watchable. And episode 4, it's a little better than 3, it's getting better. Mostly because there were no Harfoots. And they didn't try to make any songs or any flowery sounding Tolkien-esque words that don't work. And we have the broship between Elrond and Durin. And it's their storyline that despite not having any action, it's all talking. It hits the most. As an adult and as a son. All of the best dialogue and the acting, relatively to other shows, House of the Dragon, has been placed with that storyline with Elrond and Durin. If I'd give a number 2, it's maybe the Arondir storyline. That was pretty entertaining because of the action. The Bronwyn storyline intermixes with that, so yeah, that's kind of number 3. And then the worst storyline in this whole thing is, I'm sad to say, Numenor. Despite having Elendil there, he's less important in this episode than the last. Also Halbrand, they keep hinting that he's Sauron, and I'm hoping it's not. If it turns out to be him, it's gonna be a shitty surprise. Because it won't be a surprise anymore. But yeah, I liked Halbrand in the last episode. But as for the star of the show, Galadriel just continues to be she's the leader of the northern armies, right? She leads people, but she doesn't act like it. She's kinda dumb. And she has no social skills at all. And that's not Galadriel. When I think of Galadriel, I don't think of Kratos because that's what we have here. She's Kratos in this series. I was hoping for a smart, high charisma character because that's what Galadriel is. I mean, it's okay if she can fight, but she's not supposed to be Kratos. She's supposed to have a brain on her, and it's not showing right now. She might be the only one who kind of knows what's going on, that Sauron's still here, but how she acts towards other people, how she tries to get to her goals, yeah, it's just so stupid. How the hell do you root for this character? I know they tried to create a strong female character, but you can be strong without being dumb, hostile to everyone, and childish. She's the oldest character in this entire story. She's been around since the first stage. She's led people into battle. She's been around the greatest leaders who've had hundreds, thousands of years of experience. But she's like this. Is this how you fucking Americans view strong? For me, I think Galadriel here should be more like Bronwyn and Halbrand put together. That's how I see Galadriel. And you can make her good at fighting, but not too strong. Because if you make the character too strong, she'll lose some of the challenge in order to get to her goals. She'll be less of an underdog, and it'll be hard to root for her. That's why I compare her to Roman Reigns. But yeah, I'll talk more about that later when I talk about the actual scenes. And then I know the lore isn't being completely followed, and then I can't really fault Amazon for this too much because they can't adapt everything because they don't have the rights to it. But at least try. And stop putting your political ideology in shows. If you're gonna make a show with politics, make it be the politics of the actual setting and not some American shit because it's getting annoying. And that's for either side. I don't give a shit about American politics. I wouldn't even want Philippine politics in my fucking shows. We watch these shows to get away from the real world. Just like Lord of the Rings, just like The Hobbit. I still remember those movies fondly, especially Lord of the Rings, of course. But for The Hobbit, I know it's not the best adaptation, but it makes you feel like you're in that world that you're nowhere near where you're living. It takes you to a different place, just like what Kanye West says. I watched The Lord of the Rings recently, and it really put a smile to my face because I don't have to remember or believe that there is this thing going on where the media is being made that pollutes the fucking media. And that's for both sides. So yeah, before I get cancelled or trolled, so yeah, we start the episode in Numenor Castle. The Queen Regent, Muriel, is holding like the sort of mother's club. They're all there hanging out, talking about their babies being the future, until the white tree starts dropping leaves. It's all the same setup as the one in Minas Tirith, but this one looks better. Really shows the glory of the Numenorian Empire. Yeah, but the building here looks really good. And what happens after looks really good. The visuals in the show, aside from like the elf armor, is undeniably stunning. It's spectacular. It looks really good. Especially this like omen, this like dream the queen has where the water just destroys Numenor. If this was a silent show, if this was like a silent movie, and we don't get any of that shitty dialogue, this would be like fucking awesome. but we have to listen to them open their mouths, so yeah. But this first scene here, this dream sequence, looks really good. It's well done. Well shot. I love the first person view looking out of like this balcony thing and seeing just like the houses, the buildings, your entire existence getting destroyed by water. That's why water sucks. But then we get one of the worst parts of this episode. And it's mostly because people open their mouths. They start spewing this fucking trash that should not be here. This like dialogue that's used in American politics. They took your James! Yeah, it's kind of like that South Park thing. It's one fucking elf. How does that affect anything? This is so dumb. Just like inserting modern day politics into fantasy. Especially if it's fantasy written in the past. It was written in the 20th century, for fuck's sake. But I do like this convincing speech by this demagogue, Pharazôn. Great delivery, but the content is just terrible. From what I know of the lore, they should be talking about what they don't have. That the elves have. Not how the elves are like stealing their fucking jobs. They should be talking about how they should be immortal. And then we get this like Romeo and Juliet style shit, where Pharazôn's son does not take after his father. He's sort of this like morally good type of character for now. And then he hits on Elendil's daughter. And ooh, we have like a Romeo character from like one side of the fence, and then a Juliet character on the other side of the fence. Their families have different ideologies. How will they get together? I know this is all like a trope and stuff, but I kind of like this. I would rather see this than what we've seen in the previous episode, where we just talked about fucking Elendil's children's education. Who the fuck cares about that? We can get that in other shows. I don't want to hear about Isildur's education, about how he gets kicked out of boating school, spoilers. Give me more of this shit. It'll be interesting to see how this Romeo and Juliet story plays out. But probably they're all gonna die. And so after this, for the next scene, we have the goal of this episode. It's to convince Queen Regent Muriel to help Galadriel fight the orcs. So basically send troops to help Halbrand, help the Southlanders repel the orcs. And like eventually like form a kingdom with Halbrand as king. Vassal state maybe. Probably. So yeah, I guess this is how they'll do like the scene where they capture Sauron. Because from the books, I know that Sauron gets captured because the Numenorians just show up and they're so superior to Sauron's forces that he just surrenders. So I guess this is how they'll do it. But what I hate about this scene is how Galadriel is just like kind of dumb. She's very undiplomatic. She has no social skills at all. And she just treats everyone like shit. Like you're one elf who's not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in Valinor. You don't have your king's blessing. She does have the Valar's blessing, as we'll find out later, but that doesn't happen yet. Like, wait for that to happen before you start doing all of this shit. This isn't how properly to treat people. Like, if I do this to a consultant, I would get demerited and extended like hell. So yeah, I really hate this portrayal of Galadriel. She's more of Kratos, and that shouldn't be this way. Again, like what I said, she should be Halbrand plus Bronwyn combined. And then this line where, like, she says that there's a tempest in me. Oh my god, that's so cringe. Come on. Wheel of Time has better lines than this shit. It has a better script. And then thankfully, next scene, it's actually kind of funny. She gets thrown into jail, making her look a bit dumb. I don't know if this is the intention, if we're like supposed to laugh at her. It certainly seems that way after how she talked to the queen. And just like her being thrown in jail, like it's missing a mwah, something like that. But Halbrand does crack jokes, so I guess we're supposed to laugh at this. We're supposed to laugh at our main character's misfortune. It's like Bill Goldberg putting on a wig. Oh my god. And so after this is Isildur's boating school. It's his training, it's his last day until he like graduates to become like an official crew member. But he then hears the call of Middle-earth. He sees opportunity there, and then he lets go of the rope on purpose so that he'll fail, so that there's no turning back, so that there's nothing to fall back on anymore. It's Middle-earth or bust. So he lets go of this rope, but then it affects his friends. Since this captain is a bit of an asshole and then like bans all of them, expels them all for life. This pisses off this one friend, and then they give Isildur this like rich kid talk. Like, he's the rich kid, you're only here because of nepotism. I had to work for this, I really want this, and shit. He insults Isildur's mother, and they leave in bad terms. Okay, but honestly, that captain was too rough. I mean, at least like put an appeal or something. Challenge the decision, appeal to like higher authorities, talk to the dean. Don't just take it. But yeah, this scene, like the part that I didn't like most about this scene is that like the land talks to him. Like, he looks at Middle-earth, I assume, and then it just calls for him. It just like literally says Isildur. And I don't like this. Come on. You can do better than this. Just have the music change, have Isildur's actor act with his face. This could have been done better. And as for the fight between Isildur and his friends, I guess I kind of see the point of this whole part of the storyline now. I mean, it does like force them to leave the island, to leave Numenor, to follow like a different career path. But this is still the least interesting storyline of the whole show so far. Again, I do not care for like this educational based drama, this like school centric thing. So thankfully, we leave Numenor, and we go to Arondir, who's like surrounded by orcs. They failed their escape, and then he gets to meet Adar. Yeah, that's it. Adar, who is like one name of Sauron, but he turns out to be like just this evil, scarred elf who the orcs revere. He puts this one orc out of his misery. They all seem to like think he's Jesus Christ or something. He treats the orcs poorly, but it's nice to see the orcs actually scared to die, to see what their rituals are. I think this is the longest time we spent with an orc or orcs and see how they function. Apparently, they're not just savages who just eat their fallen comrades. Just like Trollocs, they're not Trollocs. They each have their own personality, and then the way they treat their dead is they chant something, they loot his body, and then I think they eat it. Or they feed it to the warg. Because we get this one scene later. But yeah, they have a conversation, Arondir and Adar. And then they introduce themselves to each other. And then it turns out that Adar's motivation is he wants to be a god. And Sauron can turn him into one. But what I don't like about this is he just lets Arondir go. This extremely capable warrior who almost escaped the camp without proper weapons, that I think basically his team just let him down. In order to go to Bronwyn's village, their old watchtower where Arondir was in episode 1, all of the humans are now there. It's a pretty defensible place. There's only one passageway, which is nice. But they're sending Arondir there, as we'll find out later on in the show, but I'll just tell it now. The message is to surrender to Arondir or die, which isn't much of a message. This was a pretty lazy way in order to get Arondir out of this mess. But I also think that if he just escaped, through any way, it would be too run of the mill. We see this shit all the time, so I think they should have cut off some fingers. They should have disabled him in some way. Remove his index and his middle finger so he can't draw a bow and shoot anymore. So yeah, that would have been a cool sort of condition for him to escape. Because him escaping would just be too run of the mill, and then if you have Adar just let him go, it's kind of dumb of Adar to just give the humans this big of a help. But all in all, Arondir's story, because of the situation, the scenario and stuff, is the most entertaining so far. So after this, we have Discount Helm's Deep. That's not fair. You know what? Not everything can be Helm's Deep, but this certainly gives off that feeling, but it's on a smaller scale, of course. Not everyone has access to huge fortresses that are super defensible. But yeah, it's big enough to house the surrounding villages, and we are probably gonna have a battle here. Similar to Helm's Deep. And then the Númenóreans will swoop in and save their asses. Because later on in the show, the Númenóreans eventually accept Galadriel's offer, of course. And then yeah, I think that's how that's gonna play out. And then they're gonna go to Sauron and then capture him. But yeah, as of now, we have this storyline in this place right here, where they have a shortage of supplies. Bronwyn's solution is just to keep safe as they forage in safe areas, while Theo wants to go to the villages, loot some of the houses, so they can get basically more and guaranteed food. They have a disagreement, and then Theo eventually wins out because who can stop him? This is just a standard generic fantasy or survival horror sort of thing. And it doesn't really achieve much except having Theo use his sword, his basically lightsaber thing, and to have some action. So Theo's storyline, which Arondir joins after, is where the action is this whole episode. We do get a tense moment where they're looking for Theo and then he hides in the well. It's alright at first, but The orc drops a bucket on his head, and then he like reacts. So the orc has to like go back, check, stab the well, and then like just doesn't check the water. And then like when the orc leaves, as Theo is like surfacing, he makes this like loud noise that could be heard. I don't know. I mean, he's inside a well, but that thing is like a microphone. All the sound is gonna come out of that opening. It's like talking through like a spool, like a toilet paper spool. And that orc would hear it. So why not just have him like surface slowly, all like Predator style? But yeah, pretty badly directed scene right here. So after this is Calabrimbor and Elerond. So this scene sets up Elerond's quest for this entire episode. Calabrimbor first talks about Ariandil, Elerond's father, who is now a star, basically. Calabrimbor sort of like brings him out of nowhere. And I think he's just primed up because of like this tower from Shadow of Mordor / Shadow of War that they're building. It's his forge. And like visually, this shot outside the window looks very solid. Looks like it's actually there. But then we suddenly get this conversation that sets up Elerond's mission for the entire episode. And it starts with Calabrimbor like just suddenly comparing him to his father. Like Elerond is just standing there, Calabrimbor like just out of nowhere talks about his daddy, Ariandil, who's now like a star. This gets Elerond to think, and then they set up the mission where Calabrimbor says that find Durin. He's avoiding me. There might be something wrong. And yeah, this scene here was just to set up all of this. And it really wasn't very necessary. You could have taken this out and the episode would not have changed. But their conversations have like the best dialogue. It sounds less modern than what most of the characters say, like in the next scene. And yeah, this whole storyline with Elerond, with Disa, and with Durin, and yeah, with Celebrimbor as well. These are like the best actors of the show. It's also the most compelling storyline. So yeah, so let's proceed to the next scene. So after this is Elerond is looking for Durin, Disa is covering for him, and like the dialogue here is kind of weird. I hate the use of girlfriend, but Disa here does a really nice Scottish accent. But I would have preferred the dwarves to like speak in a bit of like an aged, a bit more older style of talking. Because the girlfriend line really like takes you out of it. So Disa does a bad job at covering for her husband, but she manages to succeed with some technicalities that only a dwarf would know. And like their daughter, like off screen, we just hear her voice repeats this like riddle. The rich crone kiss the stone, polish your gems in gold. That Disa tries to shut down multiple times. And she like really tries to shut this down. It's very noticeable. It's a bit out of the ordinary because it's just like a children's rhyme. But Disa is like pissed off. And we do find out later. But yeah, this is a dead giveaway. Acting here was really good. As well as the dialogue. Whenever they go like full Scottish, it kind of pops me. As well as Elerond's very refined way of speaking. And so yeah, the sets of Moria / Khazad-dûm just look the best. Some of the dialogue is a bit modern, but not the design of the room. It looks very alien, it looks very like foreign. It's exactly what I expect when there are dwarves on the screen. Hell, they can use this set for like an Orzammar, and it would fit seamlessly. No questions asked. But yeah, after this, we have the conversation with Disa and Durin. And again, this scene is very well acted, but I have a problem with like just where they did this. It's like a nice mushy scene, of your like parents flirting with each other. If you're like the offspring of these two, you would be embarrassed, and that's all well and fitting. But where they have this conversation, like it's just out in the open, is a bit dumb. They don't really show the distance, so I thought this was just like nearby. Like for the first time that I watched, I thought Elrond was just like a 2-minute walk away from Disa and Durin, and apparently he's not. But they did a poor job in like showing us the distance and like just establishing the scale and the layout of Moria. We do get this shot from episode 2, but that's 2 episodes away. This is episode 4. And it would have been nice to see how far like Elrond's elf sight goes. We should have had like a shot like this, or you know, this like zoom out shot after Disa and Durin talk. We should have had like a zoom out sort of like reverse camera shot that it leads to Elrond. That would have really helped. It would have been cool also to see like the extent of Elrond's eyes. And judging by this picture right here, it does seem like that if Elrond and the guards move like a bit back, it could be this one here, like at the bottom, but that would be, yeah, that's like the orientation is a bit wrong. It might have been like further off because the patterns of the bridges don't really match. So yeah, just show us more of this really expensive set that you have. And so we then get the payoff to the nursery rhymes being sung by Disa's children. It's the password in this mithril mine that Elrond finds. And yeah, he makes his way to this mine. He sees the vein with a shining piece of mithril. And then he walks into Durin. This pisses him off, and then in typical dwarf behavior, he tries to protect what he's mined. It's a stereotypical dwarf characteristic to be greedy, and this is exactly what he does here. But Prince Durin is a bit softer when it comes to his friends. So yeah, Durin makes him swear an oath. He makes him swear to the stone, but Elrond like takes it up a notch and then brings up his daddy. And since this is Lord of the Rings, this is Middle-earth and it's not Game of Thrones, oaths do have power here. And even like curses. But I think it's not fair to compare the kinslaying that curses Fëanor's line compared to like this simple oath. But Durin does set the stakes very high. The doom of your kin. That's pretty heavy. And so he nerds out about the mithril. But I think the reason that it's kept secret is a bit dumb. It's secret because it's perilous to mine. And I would understand that for your own people, if it's like other dwarves, just like going on independent mining missions, that would be reasonable. But I don't think that's how the society works. I think the king organizes these, they mine according to his whim, and since your people are like pretty much 100% into this shit, you won't be like independently mining this stuff and killing yourself. And if that happens, yeah, you had it coming. And if he's keeping this secret from like the other races, how the hell do they get in there? That's like one of the most well-defended mountain fortresses in all of Middle-earth. So yeah, he shows it off some more and then he gives this small piece to Elerond. And yeah, sweet gesture. This whole part here is very wholesome. But then this is broken up by a cave-in. And I don't think this is how caves sound. I don't think they roar, so this might be Durin's Bane. So yeah, but that's not gonna happen till maybe next season. Hopefully we get a lot more of Moria before things go to shit. And according to the lore, it doesn't show up until Durin the 6th. So we will be enjoying Durin the 4th here for a long time. Unless, of course, the showrunners change the events of the lore, which they probably will. So yeah, Durin dives in to save the dwarves, and then we're not shown anything more. It would have been cool to have a scene of just like Elrond and Durin best of friends, just like helping each other out, save these people. But instead we go back to fucking Numenor, where I'm okay with this like Romeo and Juliet storyline with Pharazôn's son and Elendil's daughter. But we then go back to Galadriel, and the first scene here is actually not that bad. The first part of the scene, we have Halbrand being telegraphed as Sauron once again when he teaches Galadriel how to manipulate people. And this is a bit weird, especially for this like refugee to know how to do this. And if this guy was like actually human, he would be surrounded by idiots, by like lesser men. So how the fuck would he like hone this craft this well? He has like a very complicated way of doing it. He takes the people's fears, gives them a means to overcome it, and then he masters them. This is like next level manipulation that some dude that you found on a raft should not know of. Even if he is like the descendant of the king. Like, powers don't run through blood. Okay, on second thought, maybe they do. But you need like training as well as experience in order to be this good. To be Halbrand good. And there's also this thing that Halbrand doesn't want to leave Numenor. So that just like builds up to the proof that he is Sauron. But then Pharazôn shows up with like 3 dudes in order to escort Galadriel to a ship. She's finally getting what she wants, to be escorted out of there in the first place, to get a ship, go back to Middle-earth, and then hunt Sauron. But of course, her plans change, understandably, and she gets Roman reigns when she easily takes out 3 Numenorians. And then Pharazôn is about to throw down as well, and probably get his ass kicked if he tried. But then Halbrand telegraphed to Sauron again. He whispers in his ear. And I do know from the lore that a king named Pharazôn has Sauron in elf form as his advisor. So yeah, one of my favorite characters in the show is Sauron. But yeah, this was not pretty subtle. They do this a lot throughout the entire show. And this just like makes it about to like 90%. And so Pharazôn lets Galadriel go because apparently he knows where she's going. It's to the queen. He allows this so he can gain power. So Galadriel might kill her or something. Or so that the status of Queen Tarmiriel's father would be known to everyone. This might give them a hint. But I think the regent title gives it away. Like, how do you not expect anything wrong's happening? But yeah, the man is incapable. Galadriel sympathizes, finally. She has like more than one emotion. And then she manages to convince Queen Regent Tarmiriel to help her out and to like reveal her true intentions, which is to side with the elves in this like whole Numenorian political situation. And so she brings Galadriel to the Palantir, which I'm currently looking for in Shadow of War. And she uses the Palantir. There's this sort of nice like cracking animation, and then she experiences the fall of Numenor just like the Queen Regent did. But yeah, Galadriel talks about the path of fear, that she sympathizes because no one else sees what she sees. But the Queen is still adamant to stay the course. So yeah, end scene, we go to Bronwyn, to all of these like low people in the tower. Rowan's back. He totally lies about leaving Theo behind, and then we go straight to Theo. So the orcs have not left. They are this committed to finding that sword. So yeah, we have a nice stealthing scene, but then he gets found out. Theo almost gets killed, but Arondir saves him, who I think is his daddy. This is just a bit too convenient. Like, I think we should have seen stuff in Arondir's point of view first. It would have been less cringy and it would have received, I think, less backlash if we had it the other way. If, like, we were in Arondir's point of view and then he just saves Theo. It's like a more interesting reveal than with this, like, more run-of-the-mill one. And so then we get, like, a prolonged slow-motion scene slow motion chase scene where Arondir fights off the orcs as they're being chased, and this is pretty cool. But the slow motion part just like goes on for too long, and it gets kind of annoying. It's 300 all over again. But then Bronwyn shows up, she helps out, which I kind of think is a bit believable. At first, I thought this was too convenient that both his parents show up and help his ass. I think it would have been more believable if Bronwyn was accompanied by two others, and those two others would like be red shirts here. But yeah, they manage to escape, the sun shows up, and then scares away the fucking vampire orcs. This scene was alright, just like the overuse of slow motion. Annoyed the shit out of me. And so yeah, after this, we have this like morning scene with Disa showing off her vocal chops. And so yeah, it's awesome to hire these versatile performers. It saves the money, and then it also gets some eyes on them, it gets them more employment. And it's a lot more authentic when it comes out from the actual person's mouth, like the singing, as compared to if you have like just having them lip sync or something. And so yeah, she regrets all the lying that she's done, and she thanks the shit out of Elerond. But then the conclusion happens, and then nobody died. All of like this was for nothing, and Durin managed to save everyone. Okay, so the scene would have been more powerful if it was like guaranteed all four of them died. I hated this when I first saw this. It would have made it more weightier for like the conversation we have at the end with like Durin and his father, if like all the four dwarves that he tried to save died. And then his father then closes up the mine, and then due to like Durin's like just innate greed, just his like daringness, like make it a character flaw. This leads him to obsess over something and then have the Balrog show up. That would have been cool. But yeah, we don't get it, and the last scene where Disa sung doesn't hit as much. But yeah, Durin curses his father for like banning the mining of mithril. He closes up the vein. And then Elrond shares some pretty real and very well said, very Tolkien-esque, lore accurate wisdom when he references his father. He summarizes the story. He wonders what his father would think of him, of how he lived his life, if it was good or not, if he's a disappointment or not. But in the end, he concedes that as long as he sees him, it would be fine. He basically says like, spend the time you have left with your loved ones well before they go. And yeah, this is like so real right here. It blends lore and real life pretty seamlessly and effectively. And so after this, Durin and Elerond and Disa have this pretty comedic thing where Disa asks for the actual story of how they met. And they all lived happily ever after. It's Prince Durin just basically making it clear that he lied with all the comments that he's making, and Elrond just like setting things straight. It's like 100% to 0 when it comes to the accuracy of the tale. And so yeah, end scene, and then I think this next scene was poorly placed, since we came straight from that wholesome moment to this conversation between the two Durins that sours that last scene a bit. It's just the dwarven distrust of elves. It's always there even if his best friend is like an elf. And so after this, we have the final scene between Bronwyn and Arondir, where he delivers the message from Adar. And it's the most obvious shit ever. Surrender to me or die. Whoop-de-doo, what a surprise. This was overshadowed by Theo's scene with this old dude. This old creepy looking dude who was the owner of the sword, of the evil blood lightsaber. He Jehovah's Witness styles preaches Sauron. He takes falling of the comets / meteors, which led to the Meteor Man, as a sign of Sauron's return. And this was like effectively creepy. And it just gives Theo more to think about. Like he could give this dude away, but he can reveal that Theo has the sword and has used it. And this will land Theo into more trouble than the old man. So yeah. And so after this, we have Adar staring at a warg, I think eating the orc a while ago, smiling creepily. It's a very short scene just to end this part, and it's just the orcs reporting that they've found the sword. And yeah, this scene is like seconds long and is hella unnecessary. This could have been removed and this would not have changed the episode. And after this is the final scene of the entire episode, Galadriel leaving Numenor. So she has like 5 dudes rowing her out of like this port. They're all about to leave. They're all about to like return to their business. But then the petals of the white tree fall, which is a sign from the Valar that you fucked up. I really wish I had one of these at home. So yeah, the petals fall and then they all realize that Galadriel was right. Galadriel was right all this time. And for this specific Roman Reignsing of Galadriel, it's okay. I'm glad that she did not get what she wants by doing her usual thing of being unlikable. I'm glad that they show that it doesn't work and that people will only listen if it's a sign from the gods. Like the falling of petals from the white tree will convince you more than this mean person right here. But yeah, we get a face turn for Tarmiriel. She's like fully turned face. I think Pharazôn and Elendil and the Queen Regent all are on the same page. When this happens, all of them agree on one course, and that's to help Galadriel fight off Sauron in the south. So yeah, they call for volunteers. Isildur and his friends volunteer, and the scene ends. End of episode. So yeah, this episode is like far and away the best episode of the show. It improves upon 3, mostly because of the Durin and Elrond storyline. The Arondir Theo one brings it a bit back, as well as Numenor. But yeah, the show is being like consistently average now. It's not terrible anymore. It's not like god-awful, don't watch anymore, just like with episodes 1 and 2. Now it's like turning into a competent show. And this is without considering the inaccuracies with the lore, but they don't have rights to this. So I don't understand the reviewers who like bash the show for lore inaccuracies every episode, even if they know that it's out of their control. But yeah, as it is, it's becoming okay. It's not a good show. It's not a bad show anymore. It's a show. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you do not know me. Hit that bell notification for future videos, and please, watch my shit.